Welcome, everyone, to the Jira Life Episode 7. What is an ocean but a multitude of drops? Alex, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. It's nice and toasty in Southern California, and hopefully I'm not sweating way too much. I got the AC cranking, but yeah, we don't use air conditioning in Southern California that much.
Eh, um, Out here in Atlanta, it is also baking. We have humidity on top of that, so we get a double whammy.
Yeah, don't they call
So
it Atlanta for a reason?
no one calls it that.
No, it's everybody that lives outside of Atlanta.
Yeah. I made that mistake when I first moved here.
We
I
call it
got the
Atlanta.
exact same response. But not
It's like
serious.
California. Only Californians are allowed to call it Cali. So if you're not from California, don't be calling it Cali. You're not allowed.
No, exactly. Same thing. Same thing. Um, So how are you doing other than hot?
It's been a week. I think Atlassian's been making some good moves here, and I'm excited to highlight and share and talk about some of these things. And yeah, I'm happy with life right now, which is not something you can always say, right? So,
Yep.
and we got David here joining us. What's up, Jira family? We really got to come up with a name for our peanut gallery crew. We got to have a name for them.
I think it'd be better if we have them name themselves.
Yes,
Yes,
maybe
you
we
guys
got.
heard it all. Put it in the chat if you have any suggestions what to call yourself. Do it now.
What we had a suggestion, right? That you've been calling it the Jira Lifers or something like that, or the Lifers.
Yeah.
So those are the yeah. Where is Bob? Bob,
He'll be here, I'm sure.
I came across with the name from my trainings. The Jira Collects.
Your acolytes.
Jira Acolytes. Okay. Oh, David, you're too funny. We'll let the people pick in true
Yep.
democratic fashion. But today we got a couple of announcements to make. First, if you're watching this, first minute here is make sure you smash that subscribe button. I would say at this point we're drastically beyond our goal. We're trying to hit 250 subscribers. So if you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, I know many of you are watching it, but all you got to do is smash that little subscribe button, help the channel out grow tremendously. So make sure you do that. And this is the second episode that we're going to be following our new segmented model. So make sure that in the comment section, you leave your questions because we are going to be answering a couple of those questions towards the end of the episode, which also implies you're going to want to stick around to see if your question gets selected. All right. So I don't know if any of you have seen Atlas Cloud. So today we're going to be starting things off with talking about the history of Atlassian and specifically talking about Charlie. Now, if you don't know what or who Charlie is, definitely going to want to pay attention, but it is related to Atlas. And when I was looking up movie quotes from Atlas, I found this one and I felt a little deep, right? What is the ocean but a multitude of drops? And it just made me think about, I always tell people from like a Jira administrator perspective, like don't always try to boil the ocean, right? Because it's really, really hard to just do a drastic change. And I thought it was appropriate from a Jira theming and also from a Atlas theming of what we're going to be talking about today.
I mean, even if we go so far as Atlassian, their theme this year is impossible alone, possible together. I think that just fits perfectly in.
Look at us, just Atlassian hire us.
We got Bob in the house.
Bob is here. Okay, and we are allowed to start now. Thank you, Bob. We were getting a little worried, making sure that you weren't here, and now we're ready to go. All right, so for people joining us here in the chat, we are trying to come up with a name for the Peanut Gallery. Currently, we have Jira Accolades with the hyphen. I know how to pronounce it, and we got the Atlassian Rangers, like Power Rangers, and Bob and Clef. If you all want to put in some suggestions, feel free to drop them in the comment section there.
Okay. He was busy getting a Bitbucket demo ready.
Just make sure you make your Bitbucket offering or demo offering, otherwise it will not go correctly. All right, so let's start the party. Let's jump into a little bit of history of Atlassian. Quick comment. I've been doing through ApeTech. I've been doing a series of interviews with folks, right, to get to know community members. And one of the more interesting things has been one of my first questions that I ask folks is, tell me about your first memory of Atlassian. And it's always so crazy to just hear stories from like beyond when I came into Jira, because I feel like I've been around for 6, 7 years now, but there's a couple of people that have been there almost since like day one, and so it's, I don't know that a lot of people realize or acknowledge or even appreciate the fact that Atlassian's been around for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna pull up a couple of articles to kind of talk about the history and see like how Atlassian has changed. And feel free in the comment section here to kind of describe your first memory, or just kind of like the things that you remember of the good, the bad, and the ugly that Atlassian has gone through in these transitions. Because a lot has changed since day one, right? A lot, the how the product is used, how it's marketed, just
I mean,
how
just
you.
how it feels. I mean, I've had to load some very old instances of Atlassian for a few tricks in migration, and it feels almost alien now compared to, especially Atlassian Cloud. Some of the old versions of Confluence, the old versions of Jira just feel foreign in a way that I'm like, I know this was the version I started with. Why does it feel so off all of a sudden?
Yeah. I still remember the first time that I went to the cloud. I was like, this feels weird. And then because I came from the data center world, right? And then the cloud like got like the data center look. And now when I go back to data center, I'm like, what is this antique? Because now the cloud
Hmm.
is like, I think the cloud's always constantly being updated. And so now just even data center, just going back to it, like I always like looking at screenshots of documentation from vendors and stuff, because I'm like, you haven't updated to the cloud. Because you can really obviously tell the difference between the UIs. But anyway, so we're just here in a post that Atlassian posted a few years ago, or sorry, a year ago, on June 2nd of 2022, and they kind of went through their 20th anniversary. But as Bob said here, Atlassian's now old enough to drink, so they've been around for 21 years, I guess, at this point. And but we're gonna kind of walk a little bit through the history, and again, just highlight some of the more memorable moments, and maybe call out where we jumped in, right? Where in that timeline we started using it, and again, some of our favorite memories from the years of Atlassian. Now, I thought this was super interesting. I don't know if y'all can see this, but this right here reminds me of like the Facebook, when it was like the Facebook and Mark
Hmm.
Zuckerberg made that original logon. Like I'm getting like straight up like original OG Facebook vibes, but it makes sense. Facebook's 2004, this is 2002, right? But yeah, I don't know that I ever saw this login or this icon at all. But one of the main things we're going to be talking about today is Charlie, right? And I think this is probably the first time that we see Charlie.
Yeah. This is probably one of the first iterations. For you, those of you who may not be aware, may not even know who we're talking about, Charlie was Atlassian's original logo, icon, what have you, and it was featured in some form or another on all their products. Um, in fact, the when they gave their AI demo at Team 23, they called their assistant Charlie in honor of the original icon, and it's supposed to be inspired by Atlas holding up the world. So that's kind of where it came from, and it just kind of evolved from there.
Yep. And so, in case you didn't know, Jira was really a bug tracking tool, right? You have a couple of developers who are probably running into some sort of bug, some sort of problems. And so they just needed a bug tracker. They needed something that wasn't Bugzilla. Now, I am old enough to also remember Bugzilla. I never had good experiences with it. um, but yeah, it's essentially, it was like there was really only one tool back in the day that I can remember, and so these founders created a very engineering centric tool that really helped engineers, right? And it's really interesting to contrast Jira then with Jira today, because I don't know that Jira even cares about engineering at this point, right? Like I feel a lot of the direction today is just like everybody, right? A team, anybody and everybody, right? And it's just so interesting to see how like that original roots of very much a technical tool for technical folks, but now it's just that it has evolved over 21 years to become like the tool for everybody.
I mean, we say that, but we still see vestiges of this time. The default fields such as fixed version, effects version, components, All these work towards this original purpose as a bug tracking tool. What version was a bug first seen in? What versions does it affect? What versions is it fixed in? All this was meant to originally harken back to this purpose.
Yep. And let's not forget that it was Australian too, right? And so I guess 2003 is really when it starts making its way over to the US.
Mm-hmm.
And we're starting to see Atlassian really, really start taking off here in 2003 as a very, very first contender. And looks like there's some story here with American Airlines. They saw Jira on our website and bought it just like that. Now, in the chat, anybody remember how much Jira used to cost? I always am blown away by how much the price was. So in the chat, how much was Jira? Let me rephrase. How much was Jira when you first started using Atlassian or Jira? Because I'm really, really curious to see where different phases in the pricing timeline folks came in through as well. Then we fast forward to 2004. The sooner you acknowledge the wrong turn, the sooner you'll get back on track. Momentum starting to build, and seems like a good time to have the U.S. presence, since that's where most of the customers were. So Atlassian set up a tiny office in New York. I did not know that. I always thought they were just based out of SF. I thought they would have gone straight to San Francisco. But our leadership team realized quickly that we overextended, closing that office. But it was a good practice, making tough calls, and which we may need to follow here. So that's always, I think I like that, right? It's always tough. I think a lot of companies just try to stick to a decision and they just live with it because they made the decision. But it shows a lot of maturity here to like acknowledge a mistake and pivot. Coming in 2005, innovation needs dedicated time and space, and it's not going to happen on your coffee break. Ship it. Any thoughts on Ship It? What's your favorite memory of Ship It?
Honestly, I've just I've always checked out the aftermath. I've never watched it live. But that being said, some of our favorite features and products come out of Ship It. The most famous example of which is, of course, JSM itself.
Yeah,
Jira Service Management started as a
Now, I really like Ship It, right? So in case you're watching this and you're like, what the heck are they talking about Ship It? Ship It is a hackathon, and it's a period of time and in Atlassian where the developers and really the company gets time to basically work on whatever they want for X amount of time. And this idea is like really, really good. I think Google's probably the most notorious in having this kind of an environment, right? Where it used to be every Friday. I don't think Google does it anymore, right? But Google used to do it so that 20% of your time was just dedicated to like whatever the heck you wanted, right? And this is how we got things like Gmail, right? Basically a lot of the products that we use and love today were all a result of just somebody having this cool idea, having I wouldn't want to say unlimited, but having the resources to do it, and then just kind of venture out and just try things, right? Just really try to explore. It's a really good opportunity for when you have pain points in your job and just being able to like, you know what, this has been bugging me forever. We're just going to take a pause on the regular day-to-day stuff, and we're just going to try to see, can we make our life a little bit easier? Andy's on the train again. Yep. Thank you so much, Andy. I still remember the very first time that he was like, I'm traveling. And I'm like, oh man, hope he's got that autopilot on. But yeah, the train makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah.
Bob says he was reading about Ship It as part of an Agile HR course I couldn't teach. I could teach. What? You're gonna have to explain that one a little bit more to me, Bob. But anyways, hackathons are really, really cool. I think there's a really good idea, and it's one of the things that I think Atlassian still does even to this day, right? Like
they do.
It's a great way to get your team to just come together for a few days. I think it's usually like a 24-hour thing, right? And just have food, drinks, have a good time, code. Anybody and everybody can contribute to these ideas, and it's usually how you get cool things to happen. I know a lot of companies try to replicate, but many are not successful. I used to work at a defense contractor, and we tried to implement a hackathon one time. And in the defense world, you got to bill by the hour. And so we're like, nobody's going to show up to work for free. So literally nobody showed up to a hackathon. And like we try to create these innovative spaces, and we try to like put whiteboards everywhere and just like foster this like culture of just collaborating and working together as a team. But because you're your culture is an hourly culture where every minute of your life has to be billed to a specific contract, nobody wants to innovate. So I think this is one of the cool things that divides the companies that do achieve a lot versus the ones that are just like, eh. I think
Hmm.
because when you're tracking hours against like that, it gets a little harder.
Very much so.
So we fast forward a little bit. I want to kind of go here to these meaningful
Um,
values. Go ahead.
this, by the way, was and probably again will be a quiz whiz question.
Yeah.
So they love to pull questions from these values.
So the values I think are really interesting because I again grew up in this culture of defense, right? This culture of very seriousness, a culture of pecking orders, and you don't challenge up, and it's a very much top down type of influence, and you don't make you don't make jokes, right? Like you don't, everybody's like always on the edge, very very tense situations. And when I saw this, I was like, wow, this is a company that would be really cool to work at. Because like, what other companies literally put this kind of language publicly out there? And it just goes to show how what an awesome and just like down to earth company they are.
Bob is currently studying for quiz whiz at the same time.
Bob, we're like competitors. I should not be giving you these answers.
No,
All
Bob,
right,
keep at it. Keep at it.
keep at
Definitely
it. Yeah.
keep at it.
So this is, I think, now entered Rodney, right? So 2008, the user community. I think this is kind of what, obviously not you not coming in 2008, but you're a really big popular member of the community here, along with we got Mr. Bob and we got Andy, right? These heavy hitters in these Atlassian communities, and I think it's interesting that like I am now, literally now, just as of Team 23, finding out about this community leaders program, and this thing has been around since 2008.
Hmm.
So it's crazy.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I
th-
didn't even find out about it till my first summit. It's like the best kept secret in the Atlassian world is there are these groups where you could just join and learn things and talk to people. By the way, I am presenting for the Boise, Idaho Atlassian Community Events Group next week. So definitely check the bio for details on that.
I love this line here. So Atlassian started supporting them with pizza, beer, and T-shirts, and then basically started out of the way. I think that still echoes today, right? Like Atlassian
Yeah,
is very
yeah.
supportive. They um, obviously you guys are probably way more involved than me, right? But you're always getting like all kinds of good swag, and you get a lot of resources. But then you get freedom to kind of evangelize the products, right, to the best of what you like and don't like.
Yeah.
Coming still in, man. Like I am still not in here. Anybody like in the chat? Did I hit a year where you came into Atlassian yet, or are we still? I'm in the 2010s era. So say
I
hi to
said we
Mel.
haven't even reached where I've joined in yet, so we still got a
Getting
bit to go.
funded isn't worth selling out. Okay. Ripping off the band-aid reduces customers' pain. Rapid growth. 2013, secondments to the other teams build trust, empathy, cohesion. Investing in company culture pays real dividends. Atlassian regular appears on greatest places to work for. I'm still not in here, right? In 2014, I was still using Team Foundation Server.
This is January 2014, January 13th. I still remember the day I started.
Ooh.
Is when I first became an Atlassian admin. It was one of several tools I was taking over, but yeah, that's the point where life completely changed.
Yeah, that's so I still kind of like I thought that you and I were in here around the same time, but I'm still not in here. I came into Atlassian right around here, what would have been Halloween of 2016. Now, since nobody in the chat here is telling me, right? $10, $10 for your perpetual license to Jira Server. That's what it used to cost. Now you almost are paying that for just one user for 1 month.
Yeah. I mean, up until 2021, you could get that same deal still. $10 for 10 users on the basic level Jira server.
Yep. Now, at what year did Atlassian start making then the switch to the cloud? Because I feel like that was like the most pivotal moment in Atlassian's history, right? It was the moment where they're like, crap, we need to start making money. Because that's how it feels like to me.
Now, what year did they start their
2012.
cloud product, or what year did they really start pushing it? Because those are two different dates.
Well, let's go. Let's do both dates. What dates do you remember?
I want to say I've heard and seen references to what would become the Atlassian cloud product as early as 2015. So that was way back there, but they didn't really start pushing it hard until they went public, which I believe was 2018, 2019.
When did they go public? In the chat, who knows? We really gotta we're just making questions here for the quiz whiz, man. Like, what year did that last? And of course, in traditional like quiz whiz fashion, they're gonna be like they're gonna name like the team that won the Olympics that year.
I was wrong.
What year was
I
it?
was entirely wrong. Atlassian went public on December of 2015.
What memorable moment or pop culture date or event happened in 2015 that the quiz whiz folks are just gonna like throw a complete curveball at you? When did they become a SaaS company? I still have stock. I actually don't have any Atlassian stock. I think I might need to invest in a little bit. But
Well, full disclosure, I have a grand total of 2.
I have 3 Rivian shares right now. Oh man. 2021 is when I first came into, well, actually 2020 is when I first came into the cloud. 2020 is when I left that defense world and I came into a little startup, and this is when I was like, whoa, this Jira looks weird. It's all blue and it's all to the side. Y'all remember when the UI was on like all the navigation was on the left?
Yes,
What a
yes.
weird time it was.
I know because I was working at a large company at the time, and it was often discussed with Atlassian and our technical account managers, which are now known as vice resurfaces, because we have to constantly rebrand everything. But Jira Data Center was the big thing from like 2015 through to about 2018-ish. 2018-19, they really started pushing the cloud hard, and then as we know, 2021 is when they announced, oh, by the way, server, sorry.
Server, yeah, sorry. I like how that can literally just be the sentence today. Server, sorry. Yeah, I think let's just kind of wrap this conversation up here, right? And talk about a little bit about the future of Atlassian, because at Team 23 is kind of where I've seen it the most, right? Like, we have the introduction of Jira Product Discovery, right? They have an introduction of a heavy emphasis on team managed projects, right? And the way I see Atlassian doing this is that they have a huge emphasis and huge need, I guess urge really is what how I'll define it, to really appease to literally non-technical folks, right? Try to get everybody and anybody into the space. And I think it's public. I don't know that I don't want to misspeak, but I think I have seen public information about Atlassian Together. Ronnie, is that something I can't talk about? Ronnie?
No,
It's public, right? Anybody in the chat? Everybody
yeah, it's public.
Okay, so Atlassian Together is Atlassian's their packaging. I think it's Trello, Jira Work Management, Atlassian Access.
I think work management is in there.
Yeah, so work management, and I think it was Trello. So they're packaging a couple of different products, right, that are really geared towards, again, just folks that need kind of like a Trello type of thing, right? Or and don't necessarily buy into the whole agile Kool-Aid drink over there. And so I think it's just a really Confluence. Yeah, Confluence is definitely part of that Atlassian package, right? And so it's just like a really interesting direction that I think Atlassian is taking. I don't know how I feel about it though, because the reason why I love Atlassian so much is because of its roots in Agile, right? It's in its ability to do Scrum really, really well. And I'm kind of torn. I kind of feel like they're really leaving us behind. But I don't know if the industry is changing. Like, are companies wanting to be more agile, less agile? Like, does it matter anymore?
I take the opposite approach. Since I've been a Jira admin, I've always been approached by different organizations wanting to get on the Jira bandwagon. Marketing, legal, ops, all these different organizations who wanted to be on this tool. And I definitely see the trend of Jira, but for X continuing on into the future. And that's kind of where we're at is Jira, but for product managers, Jira, but for legal, Jira, but for marketing, all these different groups. That's kind of trend I see continuing because that's always been the place, but it's always been on the Jira admin to do the groundwork to change a default software product or software project to something suitable for marketing, for legal, for whoever.
By the way, how do I get my little monkey logo right here? Like you have your I just realized that you have your thing there. I was like, what? I want that.
Oh, I can make it go away if it bothers you.
No, it's fine. I want my monkey logo on it.
We'll talk afterwards. There's some magic involved.
Bob said reportedly a lot of people let go because of the upcoming bagel. Can't say the R word. Where Agile coaches. Bob talks in like code for me, man. I have no idea what the heck half the time.
I mean, I don't know what I can and can't say on YouTube. Like one of the Atlassian values I know I cannot say on YouTube.
One of the Atlassian values. Okay. Well, everybody stay tuned. Maybe hopefully one day we can talk about it. I don't even know what they're talking about. So all I can tell you is that I am worried for Agile, but I'm kind of excited for Agile at the same time, just because like I don't know that Agile is going to be the end all to be all for everybody. And I'm excited that Atlassian is making these tools and these products a lot less like Agile centric. And and you guys are all, what? I'm sorry. This is so weird. I'm trying to like do a train of thought sentence and read at the same time. I cannot apparently multitask. But yeah, so I don't know. Yeah, this economy and stuff is going to be weird.
I mean, yeah, but as said, Atlassian is still growing because it is including all these different organizations and team types and all this.
These I get. Okay, Bob. Now you're saying words that now I understand the Scottish play only because I love Hamilton. I probably watch Hamilton like once a month. It's I'm addicted to that musical. Okay. So that's kind of wrapping up that story. That took a little longer than I would have liked, but that's a little bit of the history of Atlassian. Hopefully y'all enjoyed it. They've been around for a while, 21 years here, and they're only continuing. I think they're just getting started. Honestly, like if you look at where their roadmaps are going and like the changes that they're doing and just like the overall energy and momentum that I think they have is like I literally feel like they're just getting started. And if I was a competitor to Atlassian, I'd be very worried right now. But at the same time, there's a lot of competition now, right? Asana, Monday, ClickUp.
Yeah, but it's amazing how many of the conversations around those are like, okay, we got this tool. How do we integrate it back into Jira?
It's hard when you play a monopoly in the industry, right? Like every company has it now. So, all right. So that was that. Again, if you in the comment section here, if you want to add your favorite memory, feel free to add it. If you're watching the replay, we'd love to hear and read about your experience in the history of Atlassian. So moving on over to the Jack of the Week, I had a question here that I saw, and I thought it'd be a good idea to talk about workflows a little bit. Specifically, let me reshare my screen here. I'm not going to answer the question directly or answer the question exactly how it is, right? But it got me thinking, right? Block status is not in your workflows. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts, Rodney, is what are your techniques? Like how do you and your teams talk about a status of block? Like, do you do block status? Like, let me rephrase. How do y'all block your issues? Like, how do you identify your impediments? What's your favorite?
My favorite thing to do, and I've not seen this comment out there. It's people prefer to have a block status rather than what I want to propose here. What I like to do is I like to have a checkbox field called blocked that just has one option. Yes.
No.
You click that option if it's blocked. You don't click it if it's not.
Okay.
It essentially becomes a Boolean flag that you can click. It's quick to do. You can do it from even the view screen. And it allows you to say, this is in this status, but it's also blocked. It doesn't put it in an entirely separate status where you lose context of Where was it at in the workflow when it became blocked?
Yeah. So I used to be a pretty big proponent of the block status, but only probably because that's just the way I grew up. Like most of my career, like that's what we all did. Then a different team that I went to, we used a priority of
Bob's got my back.
yeah. So then we went to the priority field, right? Adding like a priority of blocker. But most recently, as of like maybe a month or two, this is the way that I pitch it right now is there's a flag feature inside of Jira, and all you gotta do is right click on that issue and add a flag. And what I really like about it is that it actually turns the whole thing like a different color. So as you're glancing at your board, it's like very, very obvious front and center what's the problem. And let me just do a quick demo here for in case anybody hasn't seen it before. You just got to go into your board. You can right click on this and there's an add flag section right here. All you got to do is do that. And notice how you can add a comment. So stuck, help. I'll do the hipster way of doing this, help. And then it turns it yellow, right? And then you can, of course, search for this in your JQL, create filters, and do all kinds of, reports and stuff on it later. But I really, really like this method. I think I prefer it now over this block status. And, when the author here tells us that it's an anti-pattern, you got to listen to the author. Authoritative figure, right, Bob?
I mean, it is an anti-pattern. It is counterintuitive. And the thing that bothers me is you lose so much context. Where was it? You now have to go dig into history to figure out, okay, where was this? When did it become blocked? All this, because it's an entirely new status.
Yeah, but what I like about doing the status is that I always enable the time in status functionality. So I'm now tracking kind of like, well, how long have we been blocked for? But at the end of the day, whatever technique you pick, the important thing though is you got to be able to flag or identify your blockers, because that is going to be like your kryptonite, right? You got to figure out how to enable your team to get some traction to remove those impediments. Otherwise, you're just hurting and you're asking for trouble. So I urge you, if you're watching this, try the flag method. It's my new favorite way. It's Bob approved. That's all that matters at this point. All right, so that is the Jack of the Week. Again, not really answering the question, but it was kind of inspired by like, hey, our block status isn't showing up. And so these are these great things where it's like, do you answer in the community question? Like, do you go like, maybe don't use the block status and try one of these other methods? I don't know.
I mean,
I don't answer enough community questions.
You're hard pressed to beat Nick on any good day. You could put your own. The best you can do is put your own 2 cents and hope your answer gets picked for Nick. But Nick over at Adaptivist, he is prolific in the community.
Yeah, I need to get him on the YouTube channel, man. So anything flagged is an indication that the team should swarm around the issue. Yeah, right. I got an idea. I'm gonna publicly announce it here. See what y'all think. But so I am not a community leader member at all, right? Yeah. So I got this dopey idea of just doing like a live stream where I answer like 100 questions and just going until I answer 100 questions and just do that consecutively enough. Where
you gonna need help for this, my dude? Because that's gonna be
how many questions? Like, how long do you think it takes for like you got at least 10 minutes a question? No, that's a freaking long time.
It depends how much research you have to do. There are some questions where I have to like, wait a minute.
I will.
Let me dig into this for a second.
Yeah. I will tell you, though, if you're all Jira admins, right, watching here, and you're like, you think you're on top of the world here, go to the community questions and try to look at those, because the most like humbling experience that I've ever gone through is going through the community questions and realizing, do I even know this thing? I don't even know Jira at sometimes. There's more to being a CL than just answering the questions. Atlassian told me that, Andy, that the reason I don't qualify is because I have no questions answered or solutions admitted. So I'm trying to meet the requirements that Atlassian themselves emailed me and told me that I couldn't do it for. I think I hit all the other qualifications. They're just like, they looked at my profile and you're like, nope, you need more questions answered. So that's gonna be my goal one day, just answering a bunch of questions. It's got to make a day.
And here's a big thing from Bob. It's both the quantity and quality. Because
So then maybe we break it up into 10 sessions, 10 questions and 10
because I
sessions.
will say, as a community leader, I also have the ability to go back, and if I'm looking at a question someone's already answered, I also have the option to take that as an appropriate answer if I know for a fact that's the thing. I obviously don't do this, especially with stuff I answer, but
Who
it
marks
is
that
something
as
I
wrong?
usually the person who asked the question.
The person asked the question. Okay.
Yeah. So they have the option when they ask a question to check box which one actually helped them fix the problem. And better quality questions, I usually like to do screenshots with mine. That's usually why my questions usually end up taking longer when I do answer them. Is like, oh, you click this right here, and then you go over here and do this. And again, picture worth 1,000 words.
Yeah. The other thing is like on the multilingual ones, right? Like I've been looking at the Spanish ones. I'm like, do you have to answer them in the native language or can you answer them back in English?
I typically stick to English questions just to avoid that problem.
Because I've been looking at them, I'm like, I can put a little dent here on the Spanish ones, right? Because I mean, I understand Spanish pretty well, but but then I can't write Spanish well, so I'm like, man, I would butcher this thing if I had to do it in Spanish. Google Translate. It doesn't translate well, Andy. Spanish is this language that there's 75 million flavors of Spanish, and it just doesn't always translate.
Mexican Spanish versus Puerto Rican versus Cuban versus mainland versus they're all different.
I was talking to the folks over at Dicer.
These are
and I was like, because I was talking to them in Spanish, and I'm like, man, my Spanish does not sound like your guys' Spanish, because their Spanish is like classy, like their Spanish is like it's educated. Like I learned Spanish from the streets.
Castilian versus non-Castilian.
Yeah, they call it Castellano, but yeah, that's the kind of the idea. I've answered questions in Korean and Portuguese. Okay, I'm gonna try it. Mi Jira instance está lleno de queso. Okay. Full of cheese.
I understood cheese, and that's all I got.
All right, so moving on to the next segment, release note of the week. So every week we like to go through Atlassian's roadmap and take a look at what they have, like what's coming down the pike, right? What new features, what new functionality, what new changes are coming to Jira that you should be hyped up for. So Ronnie, why don't you introduce us to our release note of the week?
All right. This week, Atlassian enabled the functionality to use company managed fields in team managed projects.
What do you think of that?
I think if you have team managed projects enabled in your instance, you're already going to have a bad time. But
does anybody actually like team managed projects?
Atlassian. But seriously, at least this is a step in the right direction. My biggest problem with company or team managed projects is it separates. You lose the ability to scale by sharing configurations. Instead, you're all tied to a unique configuration for your team managed project, and every team has their own configuration. And this is the definition of cleanup nightmare for Jira admins. And it even goes down to custom fields.
Yeah, I mean, it makes me wonder how they're gonna do it. That explains the question in the Atlassian community. Was there a question on this, Bob? But I don't know, like, because fundamentally you don't have like your screens and your screen schemes and stuff, right? So it's like, so the fields is gonna magically appear, but then you still have like this, like you were describing, right? Like you don't have a scalable solution, right? Like you still can't repurpose and reuse these team managed projects. And I think, but I think it's cool. I think it's going to help companies not create this like multitude of custom fields everywhere, right? Because you're going to be able to just use one custom field and then be able to use it everywhere. So I think from that perspective, I'm excited for it. But at the same time, you still got to go into each project and just, I guess you're improving it a little bit. I think it's a step in the right direction, though.
It is a step in the right direction. I don't think it's enough for me to enable team managed field projects in my instances. Even if I was on cloud, which again, only the Jira guy is on the cloud. My day job is still very much data center centric.
One day you have to join the dark side because the cloud is just amazing. The cloud is the greatest thing ever. I love the cloud. I don't know that I would. You know what? Data center, I respect it a lot. I left that IT life behind, man. These nights of servers going down, databases going down, databases being corrupted, CH mods and all that stuff. Like, I don't want to ever touch that again in my life.
And that's fair. But it said for myself, I'm so into IT that I run a home lab because I wasn't getting enough of the kind of IT work I love to do at my IT job.
Your IT job. I was, man, I just must have sucked at my job then because I regret it. Everything. Did I tell you the day that I almost set these servers on fire?
I mean, everyone's had those days. I've even had days where I had to look in the mirror and remind myself, this was my dream job when I was growing up.
Oh, the career in IT. I mean, it's a respectable. I accidentally stumbled into IT though. I got into IT because the defense contractor that I worked at, I got hired into a rotation program, and the rotation program happened to be in IT, and that's how I got into IT. But my whole goal, my whole life was supposed to be as a software engineer, but can't write a line of code if my life depended on it. So luckily, ChatGPT though works wonders.
Absolutely.
All right, last 20 minutes here, so let's go over to topic number 2, and I wanted to talk a little bit about Atlas. This is
Atlas
that I started looking at the other day, and I'm like, Monday.com, statuses, projects. Does JQL count? David says
JQL. I mean, I'm biased. I am a Jira admin, but in my humble opinion, JQL absolutely counts.
I struggled with JQL for like the first 4 years of my career. Any chance I got, I used the basic mode, but now I've learned to embrace it. What I need to pick up now though is script runner, right? Like your JQL skills don't become like next level until you go into script runner and you're able to do like some very custom queries.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, Atlas.
let's talk a little bit. Anybody in the chat, are you all using Atlas? Everybody I think has it, but does anybody actually have a pretty good use case for Atlas? Or is it just another like dream that Atlassian has and wants us to use?
I mean, we say this, but you throw enough stuff against the wall, something's bound to stick.
Now, I'm very excited, right? So full disclosure, I've never actually sat down and used Atlas, but I wanted to put in here as a motivation to maybe use it. And Atlassian, actually, I don't even know who this is, but intercom.com published this recently. And I was looking through the Atlassian community, and I saw this this article here that was posted to the Atlassian community. And I thought this was interesting because this is like really, really something that I would look for in order to get started with something that's new and scary. And I think this little blog post, whatever you want to call it, guide, black book, I don't know, whatever this thing is called here, I thought it did a pretty good job at kind of explaining what it does and motivating me to want to use it. So let me see if I can. My keyboard shortcut's broke, so I need to figure out how to zoom in here. Give me 1 second while I figure out how to zoom. Command plus, I did that. Okay, there we go. All right, so the ultimate guide for getting started with Atlas. So what is Atlas? Atlas is a teamwork directory that connects dots across teams, their apps, work, wherever it happens. Again, very much in the theme from earlier where like Atlassian is not, I mean, again, I love Jira, but we should start a I love Jira but series. You ever watch Silicon Valley?
I have not.
Oh my God. So there's an episode in Silicon Valley where they're making fun of the CEO and kind of calling out his flaws, right? But they felt so guilty talking about his flaws that they're like, we feel like we need to give it like a positive note. So they would say something positive, then but, and then do the negative thing. So I'm like, I love Jira, but this like not doing the agile, right? Again, it's just I'm just kind of hung up on the whole agile thing. Like I feel like I went to Jira because of agile, but now we're getting away with it because wherever work happens, without a framework, like I feel like this is just chaos. Now, Bob, I'd like to hear your opinions, right? Like if if not agile, then what kind of a framework can we use to keep people organized and accountability high and communication high and like still have a structure, but then not have a structure? Like I just don't know what that looks like yet. But anyways, I feel like this is Atlassian solution to all this, right? This Atlas thing where you're able to kind of bring everybody, hone everybody back in, and see what's going on in your projects and in your budgets and all that good stuff. Now, how does it work? You create a new project to share updates. You follow a project to receive updates, and by Friday, you write your update, and then every Monday you'll receive a digest. I don't know if you can read that, but that's essentially what Atlas does. And so it's kind of an interesting thing because you get a lot more like managerial stakeholder type of information, which is sometimes what's missing, right? A lot of these companies just love. I'm giving consultants answers to. Thanks, Bob. That's very helpful. It depends. But yeah, so I really like this, right? So I work with a lot of teams that I think would get a lot of tremendous value out of Atlas and being able to see like, are we on track? Are we behind schedule? I wish there was like a financial aspect to it. I hear that I hear that Jira Align is really that thing. And I think we're gonna have to have an episode one day where we talk about Jira Online and how unachievable or not unachievable, unreachable it is. You can't like you gotta have some serious dough to set up Jira Online. Right, but I would like to see like some finances here. But yeah, I think this is something that I'm going to be trying out here over the next week or so. Don't have any plans for making videos on Atlas just yet though, but maybe into the fall it's something I'm going to start doing. But I really see a lot of this here is again stakeholders, directors, your VPs. They just like this is the stuff they live for, and I'm excited to maybe try it out, right? And see what I can make happen with this and how to articulate progress and things of that nature. But I don't know. Again, in the comment section here, are you using Atlas? Are you running using Atlas?
I am not, but I have played with it. I did an article about a month and a half ago. Every new product at Atlassian, I have to do a what is article on. I'm still pending my what is whiteboards. That's coming soon. Been playing around with it, whiteboards a little more before I write that article though. But I did one for Atlas and I did play around and learn how to use it. And it very much reminds me, I've been at companies where the culture was you send a Friday report up to your manager, they compile it and send it out up to their managers on Monday as a team report. And this just seems kind of like it automates that entire process.
Yeah. And it gives you just what you're looking for, right? Are you on track? Are you off track? Or are you at risk? And you're done. And then this is cool. I think it's something I'm definitely going to be experimenting with a little bit more.
Shout out to David here. I'm Atlas curious.
Now that I was presenting this, given the history that I have with David here, I knew he was going to like this. But that also opens up, David, give me a few weeks to learn what Atlas is and how to use it before you bombard me with Atlas questions.
David, let me countermand that previous point and ask him all the questions on Monday.
So David's like asking me like all these questions on Jira product discovery and licensing and just like a bunch of stuff, right? And I'm like, dude, David, like this thing just literally came off a beta. And he's like, yeah, but that was like months ago. And I'm like, I barely even have time to go to the bathroom sometimes, man. You want me to become an expert in a whole new product immediately. So, but yeah, no, Atlas is going to be one of those things where like I'm really, really curious about it. I think I want to figure out how to integrate it more. And the other one that I want to figure out a little bit more is that Compass one as well. But most importantly, how much does Atlas cost? Does it have a cost?
It's Atlassian.
What does that mean?
It means if they could charge us for bandwidth, they probably would too.
Oh, $3 a month
per user.
But it's also 35,000 users.
So only if you're really large, you have to pay for it.
Well, only if you want custom. Well, that's not even there yet. Only if you want goal scoring. Goal scoring is a projected score based on how confident you are that you will meet your goal by the target date. Goal scoring is useful when you use OKRs. Oh, great. That's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. So I guess if you, okay.
And that's also a note to consider if you want a private project.
That is, yeah. But I think, well, I guess most of the places or the teams that I will work with, I guess private's okay, but private is relative, right? Private usually includes a lot of people.
About to say, some of the jobs you've had, Alex, I'm pretty sure there are definitely some they'd want to keep private.
Yeah, but those jobs, they're so classified that they wouldn't even be in the cloud. So this is all moot at that point, right? Like,
I mean, true. But I know for a fact that I have not worked as any sort of contractor or with any sort of contractor. And I've had companies who
on private.
have ability to have a private project is absolutely imperative.
That I think that's gonna have to be a topic for another episode, because I'm kind of like on a very firm believer that if you make your projects private, like so private, it defeats the purpose of using Jira.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. But at a certain point, I'm also not the one paying the bills. So,
But it's like, I don't know, like if you're running a company, folks, right, and you want a surefire way of just hurting team morale, because trust me, again, I come from that classified life, right? There's no worse feeling. I'm telling you, if you've never experienced this, you got to trust me on this, right? There's no worse feeling in the world where like not feeling wanted, right? Or not feeling like you belong. And when you put up these walls of like, you have a need to know, or you don't have a need to know, it creates unnecessary friction with the people that got to work together. Like my wife and I saw it all the time, right? Like for the longest time that my wife and I worked together, I couldn't even get into her parking lot. Like there was a gate that my badge from the same freaking company wouldn't work, right? Until I asked security one day, I'm like, why can't I get in? They're like, oh, we just need to add this value in the database and you can get in. So I was able to get into the parking lot. Then I had to figure out how to get into the building. And then I got into the building after asking more questions. And then I can get to her floor, but then I couldn't get into the door of her, like where she sat, right? Because I didn't have a need to know. And it was so bad that they even put up a curtain so I couldn't see inside, right? And it's just like, it just creates like for people that, again, like I think this privacy, I understand why it's important, but this is why I don't have a clearance anymore, and I'll never have a clearance ever again in my life.
Well, I mean, we say that. I'm the black sheep of my family. My father was military. He now works for a defense contractor, or he did before he passed away. God rest his soul. My brother-in-law was Army, now works for a defense contractor. My wife works for a defense contractor. Not my wife, my sister worked for a defense contractor. My wife's trying to, if she could get in. My entire family growing up, this is what was expected. You would go to college, you'd get an education, you would get some skills, you'd go work for a defense contractor. When I said, what if I went civilian? That was an act of rebellion. That was how I rebelled against my parents. No, I don't think I'll work for a contractor.
I think it takes a different kind of person though to work closed areas or closed programs like that. Like I appreciate secrecy, right? I appreciate, like, Apple's a great example of like, you don't want everybody to like leak your stuff, right? But at the same time, it's like you are nothing without your people. And if your people feel like they're constantly like having to defend themselves or for their jobs, or like I used to wake up with sweat, like nightmares of me like walking into a closed area with my cell phone. That is not a healthy thing for my body to be dreaming about these things and waking up in a pool of sweat, because I'm like, what if it actually happens and I get like fired and like, or go to jail, right? Because of this, like, yeah. So it's a whole nother topic for a whole different day. That's definitely not Jira related. But because of that, I believe Jira should be open, and you should be able to look at projects, and if your company has trouble with that, then you don't have a tool problem, you have a people problem, and you got to go check your culture. Because
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you. I absolutely feel open Jira project should be the default. If you have a closed Jira project as the default, you've got some. Why did you hire these people if you can't trust them?
Yeah, and I understand some stuff is like R&D, right? But those are edge cases, right? Like the majority, you should have your team talk to each other. You should have your team be able to communicate and work together. All right,
Mhm.
so we're down to the last 5 minutes here. So I don't know that we're gonna get to the. We got to pick, right? So right now, 5 minutes left. Ask your questions in the peanut gallery. What questions do you have for all the experts that are in this room? Because I think combined, like we got to start putting like a dollar figure to just the amount of how expensive this meeting is to run with the number of experts in the call here, right? Because this is not a cheap podcast. Obviously, very produced, but it's not a cheap podcast to have on here.
No.
If you were all to access any one of us here, right, you'd have to have a pretty penny in your bank here. So take advantage of the fact that we're all here and that you have all these experts that again are just out of the kindness of their heart here to help you all out. So in the comment section, got a couple minutes, ask your questions. While you do that, we're gonna switch on over to, do you have a Jira Fellow of the Week, Rodney, that you'd want to highlight? I think I asked on LinkedIn, but I don't know if I actually got one. Let me check real
I
quick.
don't think I got one either.
While we're doing that, special shout out. Brittany Joyner does have her new book coming out, and she's looking for people to review it. So if you're all interested, make sure you go talk to Miss Brittany here because she's looking for reviews and she's looking for people that want to read her book. And also in our presence is Amazing Bob, right? Bob, feel free to drop a link to your book in the chat here. But folks, we recommend you check out Bob's DevOps book here. And
speaking of books, I was actually asked by a fan last week, when am I going to sit down and write a book?
Yeah, when are you going to sit down and write a book?
I don't know, but considering the fact I haven't been able to stop thinking about that question since it was asked, it's probably going to be sooner than later.
Okay. And folks, surprisingly, we do have a Fellow of the Week that somebody submitted on my LinkedIn. So let me pull that up real quick and we'll go to that. Any other shout outs? Anybody else want to promote their products and or services while I'm pulling up this? Here we go. So this one's submitted by Christopher Perez. In my first year, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more here. In my first year of being a Jira admin years ago, I was asked by one team to consolidate a custom field from one into another. I did what I thought was the appropriate due diligence and queried for all the users of the field across the instance and saw that they were in fact the only team that used the field. After transferring all the data, I deleted the field to keep a tidy environment, as you probably should, only to find out that the field was used by another team, but it was hidden behind a issue security scheme that did not include administrators. I had deleted the value from over 2,000 issues. Luckily, I had an awesome team with great backup strategies in place, and we were able to get the most data restored within the next 3 hours. But man, I was sweating bullets. Wow, that is quite the story, right? Like, there's only so much you can do sometimes as a Jira admin, and that I really like that story. I don't know that I've ever done something like that, but has that ever happened to you, Ronnie?
It hasn't, but every time I have to merge fields, I am terrified about that exact situation. So I feel you. I feel you, man.
Now. I just pulled the Band-Aid now. I'm like, if you got a problem, oh well. You should have told me before. Also, I like to email blast, right? So you can email all your Jira users group. And so I like to send out a mass email saying in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks or whatever, this is going to happen. So make sure that you are ready. I'm actually in the middle right now trying to delete a bunch of values from the priority field. And I have a similar thing where I'm like, folks, I'm going to get rid of this. So if you want to hold on to it, you better let me know. Otherwise, I don't know what to tell you.
So Bob's sitting here promoting his book, Safe for DevOps Practitioners. Definitely go out. It's on Amazon. It's on all the places. Go find it. Go read it.
Bob doesn't delete. He measures 1,000 times. You know what? That's a good idea. I would have renamed it something else and see who complained. And if there's nobody that complains, right? Nobody to shake those trees, shake the branches a little bit, right? Nothing falls. then yeah, then you can delete. But that's a good idea. When you're gonna do something drastic like delete something, like maybe temporarily rename it, or maybe just temporarily take it out of circulation and see, because that there is no greater incentive for somebody to tell you, hey, stop, than when you're doing something painful, right? And until you actually do it, right, until you actually like are true to your word here, most people are just going to be like, whatever. But the moment that their Jira broke, that's when they come out of the woodwork. I've seen that happen many times.
Yeah, always have a rollback plan, and that usually takes the form of hide something, don't delete it, keep it around for a day or two,
Or a week.
or
Gotta
a
go.
week,
Yeah,
or
we are gonna be. Thank you, Bob, so much. Thank you to everybody in the Peanut Gallery. Appreciate y'all being here. We are out of time for today. Did we see a question? Is the real moneymaker here? Did we have any questions? Advice is free on here in Atlassian community with the confines of my job very expensive.
does JQL count? That's a question.
Does JQL count? Yeah. All right. Well, again, you folks, you all got to take advantage of these questions the moment here, because this is where it's your opportunity to get your questions answered by the pros, get different opinions. Because I don't think there's anywhere else on the Atlassian community where you're actually going to get a bunch of Atlassian admins like bantering and giving you your opinions. Because even in the actual questions of the Atlassian community, I think once you see Niv or one of those folks answer, like, you usually go on to the next one, right? I don't know that I'm very intimidated. If one of those adaptivist folks already answered, I'm like, I'm going on to the next one. I'm like, I'm not going to be exposing my imposter syndrome here. Anyways, that's it for this one. Thank you all very much. If you made it this far and you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing to the channel. Make sure you check out the products here from Brittany, from Bob. Go show them your support as well. And most importantly, I think in the future, we are going to be talking about backup strategies a little bit more. We have a company, Rewind, that is very, very interested in coming onto the show, talking about their backup strategies for Jira. So we are currently trying to figure that out. We're trying to get a date and time, but do expect in the future, if backup strategies, SO2 compliances, and just a bunch of other just compliance activities are important to you and your Jira instances, let us know in the comment section down below so that we can definitely have questions. We're going to be bringing in a product manager from one of these vendors in the Atlassian marketplace, again, that focuses on SO2 compliances and backups for Jira. And we just want to, again, have good representation of the questions from the community so that we can ask the people that make these great products what your thoughts are, where you think gaps are, and what's on their mind about that topic. So thank you very much. I'm rambling. And with that, we'll pass it over to, did you create? Yes, you did. All right. Take it away, Rodney.
All right. Once again, thanks everyone for listening to the Jira Life. My friend here is Alex, the Access Academic Ortiz. You can catch him on youtube.com/@atech tech tutorials, all one word. This week, he introduced you to Atlassian Access, what it could do, what its purpose is. So you definitely don't want to miss that. Check out his channel. My name's Ron. You can find my blog at thejiraguy.com. This week, I actually go over the Atlassian Creator Program and introduce you to 5 creators. Seems to have been a hit so far. As always, you catch this recording every Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, at youtube.com/@thejiralife. Be sure to join us and the other lifers each week as we answer questions, look at the latest news, figure out what's going on, and be sure to add your comments and tell us what you're up to. If you can't join us live, you could always find us on the podcast, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast from. If you do think this podcast deserves a rating, it helps immensely. So absolutely go out there, give us a rating, please. And as always, we didn't choose the Jira Life. The Jira Life chose